Hello folks, it is time for some hobby nightmares, and today we will be diving into one Games Workshop manager's decidedly horrible brush with Betrayal. Aye, that is going to be a very interesting one. First of all, if you want to send in some more hobby nightmares, the email address is down below. It is hobbynightmares@gmail.com. Send in your hobby nightmares and I'll try and get them read out before Christmas. Jumping straight in to Templar and his hobby nightmare. Greetings, corpse worshipper. Okie dokie, I'm assuming you're meaning the Emperor, right? Greetings, corpse worshipper. If you choose to feature my story, which I did, you can just refer to me as Templar, as that's my username on everything. Okay. This story is about a cheater whose only enjoyment of the game is to pull one over on new people. Ooh. Not just a cheater, the worst kind of cheater. The one who targets beginners because they don't know what they're doing. Moving on. It started about a year and a half ago when I moved to a new town living away from my parents for the first time. Aside from a semester in the dorms of a college, for instance. I moved in with 3 roommates. One of which was a friend I got into Warhammer during college, and he dove headfirst into it. I decided to find a new gaming group as I wasn't near my old friendly local game store original gaming group anymore, so I started going to the Warhammer store with said roommate on weekends. This story is about one interesting character I met there. Let's call him Delaware. First story my roommate told me about him was at the Kill Team tournament where Delaware played Veteran Guard. For those who don't know, they can either take 2 airstrikes or 4 extra guardsmen. Delaware took both, and my roommate questioned it because they played my Veteran Guard when I taught them how to play. Delaware said that no, you're supposed to take both. When I met Delaware, I casually said, "Oh hey, you know you're supposed to only take one of these, right?" And he said he knew, but my roommate was new at the time, so he knew he could get away with it. My roommate didn't see an issue with this, but I was instantly put off by his attitude. Yeah, that is a massive red flag. Absolutely gargantuan red flag right there. Some guy says, "Yeah, I cheated, but it's fine, he was new." What? I played one game of normal 40k with this dude during 9th edition, and he told me that his Demolisher cannon had 20 shots and D6 damage. What? Now, I had been playing since the end of 7th, and one of my friends who I got into the hobby played Guard. I know the different types of Lehman Russ tanks. He was combining the best stats of each one, and I asked to see his codex. Now, this man has a wife and an infant child. He threw a mini tantrum, yelling how I'm just trying to slow down the game and to just get on with it. I knew that there were other people I could play with and didn't want to make a scene because the manager was a cool dude, so I just continued until it was finished. Around turn 2 to 3, my forces were dwindling quickly, but I realised that I was ahead on points. If he continued, I would be wiped, but ahead in points, so I started charging his tanks with my Chaos Legionaries that remained. He started making fun of me for suicide charges, and when I have 4 Legionaries left and right before he was about to attack back. I had enough and told him that if he kills me, I win, because the game will end. He started laughing at me and saying that wasn't how it worked, but the manager stepped in and told him that that is indeed how it worked and I would win if the game ended. After a few minutes of a tantrum, he declared that he wasn't attacking and just retreated until he caught up in points and won. Whatever, now it's over. Okay, North here, just diving in. I actually see his point on this one. I think it's very silly that you can table somebody in Warhammer 40,000 these days and lose on secondaries. I really don't like secondaries. I don't like the amount of nonsense that you get from these random card decks. Not my kind of a game at all, which is why I moved over to one-page rules. But I see why they're there, I see why they're there to make sure that there is an abundance of randomness, and, you know, you're trying to take away the one-size-beats-all lists that are out there, because maybe you can win on points, right? Well, the way to fix that, Games Workshop, is to make your game balanced, rather than just adding nonsense on top of it to try and give it the semblance of balance when it doesn't have one, alright? Just make the game balanced in the first place, and then you don't need secondaries, do you? Right? Cool. But I do agree with him on that point. It's a bit bullshit that you can table somebody and still lose the game. That's nonsense. But, hey, it is what it is. At least to me. It's just weird. But his behaviour is like a man-child behaviour, and he is a bit of a douche. I'm literally completely on your side there. Now, because of things that happened with my roommate, who I went to the Warhammer store with, I was evicted, purely because of their actions, and the idiotic lease saying all of us were guilty for the other's actions. Okay. Like, what the hell's going on there? So you were evicted because of their actions and the idiotic lease saying all of you were guilty for the other's actions. I guess that's not a part of the story, so I'll just move on. This is a story for another day. Okay, fair enough. And only about 50% Warhammer anyway. Well, because of this, I stopped going to the Warhammer store because that's where they would always go. And everybody besides the manager were asshats there, so it was no skin off my back. Well, a few of my friends started getting into 40k, so I started up a gaming group out of my new friend's apartment. So, I still had a few people to play with. Eventually, one guy told me about a local game store on the edge of town, and we decided to go there to play a game and check it out. There were huge tables that were perfect, and they even had terrain and mats for free use. It was only Magic the Gathering, but there was a small, growing 40k community. While we were there, playing a 2v2 battle in the back, someone came up and asked if we were interested in joining the store's upcoming tournament. Everybody else wasn't really into it, but I definitely was. I'd only been in one tournament before, and that was for Age of Sigmar. 40k was my #1 game, and I wanted to join. Well, he revealed that it was mostly for beginners to teach them how to play. They would have armies for those who wanted to try, but didn't have armies yet, and were looking for experienced players to be judges, quote unquote. These judges were just players who knew the rules well enough for the new players to come up and ask questions or to make decisions on arguments at other tables. I love helping new players, and so signed up to be a judge. Day 1 of the tournament comes in, and I am pumped. I have my Alpha Legion fully painted to perfection. I love the Alpha Legion and love kit bashing, and wanted to show the new players how you could customise your armies to maybe inspire them. I made a custom Chaos Exodus model with a sniper to act as my exalted champion, with the Alpha Legion relics from 9th to make him an amazing sniper. Before I realised, 10th would do away with all of that, so he just would have a normal combi weapon. Thanks, Games Workshop. I know that there are certain rules in every edition that seemingly just get swept under the rug. Do you know what I mean? Nonsense. Again, they can't write games. I really do not understand why people still. It's like you've all got Stockholm syndrome, and you're all just there, still playing 40k. There are so many better games out there, right? So many better games. They're actually well balanced. You know, you've now got one-page rules as well, so you don't even need to stick with 40k, but most of you do. It's silly, but anyway. And by the way, I've started saying this to people. If you've been presented with one-page rules or a similar game, and you still go back to 40k and you still complain about it, you are standing in a bunch of fire and you are complaining it is hot, when I've come over to you with a bath full of nice cold water to jump into. Don't. Alright? Cool. Moving on. I added third-party Spartan bits to my sorcerer, and he chose to make them my Greek-inspired spearhead for my army, and used the 30k Alpha Legion Leonian Terminators as my Chaos Terminators. I will add pictures at the end to show off. Not at the end, son. Putting them on now. Let's have a go. Lovely stuff. Lovely stuff. As people started coming in and we're setting everything up, I get a sour taste in my mouth as I see none other than Delaware enter the store with his Imperial Guard. 1 second, just a second. Sorry about that. Emergency, so I had to just jump off and do that. I can't wait to get an editor, because then I can do these things and you would never know it happened. But there you go. Hopefully there was an ad break there and we can jump on with the story. Anyway, as people start coming in and we're setting everything up, I get a sour taste in my mouth as I see none other than Delaware enter the store with his Imperial Guard. I think, hey, it's been a year. Maybe he's changed. I should have said something, but I just wanted everybody to have fun, so I got on with my day. Yeah, I can't really blame you for that. I can't really blame you for that. It's you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? But the thing is, though, what you should have done is made a note of where he was, and the minute you start hearing of issues or anything like that, be the first to jump on them and just get it done. You know what I mean? First turn, I'm paired with a Space Marine player who hasn't played in about 2 decades. He says that he'll just give me the win and he'll take the time to build his army. What? I don't know why he waited until the tournament actually started to start building his list, but I helped him and explained the changes in the new edition, helping him pick out good units from the models he brought and explaining which characters would buff what. We were able to get a round or 2 in to help teach him the game before the time was up. As other people finished their rounds, they watched, and I got a lot of compliments on my army. At the end, he thanked me for helping him, and I wished him luck. Okay, good. You're doing exactly what you should be doing. By the way, Alpha Legion, they look brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love them. At round 2, I was paired with another experienced player. This time an Imperial Knights player. He was a really cool dude and it was a close match. Me coming out on top by 3 points because one of my obliterators managed to survive an onslaught from his big knight with 1 wound remaining to claim an objective. We discussed the round and we're both happy with how fun it was and wished each other good luck. It was around this time that I started hearing people complaining about how powerful Delaware's army was. I checked his list real quick, and surprisingly, there wasn't anything wrong with it. I should have watched how he played. Turn 3, I'm paired with a Grey Knights player, and it's pretty close. He unfortunately wiped my precious Spartan Chosen, but I avenged them with my Terminators. I wasn't used to how they can now teleport a bunch in 10th, but it was still a great game, and I came out on top just barely. It was after this game that I started talking to Delaware's opponents. They complained about how he always talked down to new players and how powerful his army was. Turns out, his tank commander was giving orders to his infantry, he completely ignored any restrictions any abilities had, and he was using stratagems multiple times each phase. As someone who played against Guard for 4 years, I know this is not how it works, and told them how it actually worked. Unfortunately, something came up with my dog at home and I had to drop out of the final round. After round 3, there were 3 players who went 3-0. Me, a really chill dude who played Orcs, and Delaware. I wished the Orc player luck and thanked everybody for a great time and headed home. but not before texting the head judge to keep an eye on Delaware and telling him what others had told me. They kept an eye on him, but unfortunately, he still won. Even though I wasn't there, I suspect he still did something to pull one over the head judge, because the judge had only been playing for about 9 months or so at that point. While I was a bit salty about it, at least his opponents now knew what he was like, and they told everybody else. After the tournament, when I started playing at the store some more, I became friends with his round 1 opponent. Delaware had belittled him for his unpainted towel list and gaslit him for the entire game. The dude had been into Warhammer for about a month. It's a miracle he even had it all built. Luckily, I didn't see him coming to the store anymore. I think after he got his ill-gotten victories over the new players, he went back to the Warhammer store. And now for the picks I promised. Also, in a recent video, I remember you questioning why you would ever use contrast paint on Black Templars. I will provide examples of before and after contrast paints came out as to why you would. I am now just realising that I unfortunately do not have a picture of my painted Exodus Exalted Champion, so this is him just primed. Okay, cool. So here are some pictures of his Alpha Legion and things. Pretty cool. Is that contrast paint? Oh, that's contrast paint. Okay. Yeah, I can see why that's cool. I mean, especially if it does that on its own. Does it like buff up like that on its own? That's pretty cool if it does, and you've not edged highlighted that at all. I'm assuming you have dry brushed that to edge highlight it though, or something. You know what I mean? Because if it does do that as black, then I will probably do that in the future with some black models. But anyway, moving on. I honestly think that as somebody who can... I mean, here's the thing. If you're somebody who cheats, number one, screw you, don't be in the hobby. Number two, it is only a matter of time and probably literally 1 or 2 games worth of victories before you're found out and people don't want to play with you anymore. That's literally how it is. Like, literally. I have never seen a cheater go long in any sort of group or hobby store or anything like that. I've never, ever seen them go for very long. Like, ever. So, yeah, if you want to do that with your own hobby, if you want to waste your own time, then cheat away, my friend. Cheat away. I hope you have a lot of stores in your local area, because you will get kicked out of one, and then another, and then another, and then another. And it will never be like a hard kick out. They'll never say you're not welcome here again. I mean, a few of them might, if they really catch you. But even if they don't catch you, and your reputation gets around, you will get a soft ban. People will just stop playing you. There's just no point to cheating in 40k at all. Right? Get rules wrong, fine. I get them wrong all the time. And I always apologise. The thing is, though, I get them wrong for and against me. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes I'll get things wrong when they benefit me. Sometimes I'll get things wrong when, you know, they don't. And I should have taken certain things, or given myself more wounds, or more damage, or whatever. And I tend to aggregately knock my things down now. You know, if I don't know, and I don't have the codex there to hand, and we're rushing, I will aggregate score my stuff downwards. So if I don't know whether it's 2 or 4 wounds, I'll say it's 2. You know what I mean? Rather than 4. That's a good bracket to be in. And not only that, it punishes you for not knowing your codex. So you go away and you learn your rules better, because you don't want to be put in that situation again, right? Cool. But don't cheat, guys. It's only literally a matter of time before you're found out and people don't want to play with you anymore, alright? That, and all of your victories are jokes and aren't real victories. So you're wasting your own time and everybody else's. Grunt says, "Hey North." Hello, Grunt. "Firstly, thank you for the channel and all you do. It really helps during the week and breaking up some of the grind, especially over Christmas for us in retail. I've currently been working for Games Workshop for some 15 years, and it's a miracle I got that milestone, and I will get into why a bit later. Needless to say, thank you for what you do. No problem. I do not miss working in retail or for Games Workshop around Christmas time. let me tell you. It is, if your Games Workshop manager is a nice guy, and he helps you out, please get him something for Christmas. Alright? It can just be a coffee or a slap on the back saying thank you, right? Something, a chocolate bar, anything. Just sort him out. It's difficult. It's really, really difficult. One-man stores especially. You are rushed off your feet at Christmas. So if he's having a hard time, or he's really rushed and really busy, do something nice for him. Alright? If he's a nice guy. Because without him, you probably don't have anywhere to play. You know? He's the one keeping the flame going in your local Games Workshop. If he's a bit of a douche, then fair enough. And there are those out there, then fair enough, don't bother. But if you've got a Games Workshop guy who's really, really, really doing well for you, get him a Mars bar or something. You know? Anyway. Let's get right into the nightmare. I started working for Games Workshop as a store body years ago. I'm talking not far past the turn of the millennium years ago. And I was straight out of university. I loved being there, and to be honest, besides some really weird bragging on my manager's part, we got along really well. What I mean by that is that we would be talking about something and he'd tell us how he did it better, even if he was not involved in the conversation. If you talked in his store, you were talking to him, in his opinion, even if he was on the other side of the room, and that was kind of weird. You did a saying the other week that made me really laugh, and I quote, "If you've been to Tenerife, he's been to 11erife." I stole that from a mate, it was amazing. That's the guy we're talking about. Yeah, I had a similar, one similar thing with my manager back in the day was I actually went to a university called Durham University, and it's considered an elite, quote-unquote, university here in the UK. And I was very happy to have been there. It's a really good uni for what I did as well, as an ancient historian. And anyway, some people would tell me, you know, is this very Roman or that, on that stuff or whatever. And I would, in the store, and I would talk to them about ancient history and things. And then the inevitable question would come along, you know, how do you know so much about this stuff? And I'd say, oh, well, I went to Durham and did this, did that. And we carry on with our conversation. My manager would always, without fail, stride across the storefront, tell everybody in that conversation, hey, North may have gone to Durham, but I went to Oxford. Haha. And then would walk off and do his own thing again. Yeah. That's weird. You know what's even more weird? I found out years later he didn't go to Oxford University. No. He went to Oxford Brookes University. A similar thing, and that's a university, but at nowhere near the same level. The guy lied out of his fucking teeth. Yeah. Just goes to show, right? Having small dick energy, not nice, right? If you got that going along in your head, get it out there, son. People like you for you, and if they don't like you for you, then, you know, move on. But don't try and make people like you by lying to them. It's not worth it. You hate yourself in the end. Anyway. I was well on track to getting a store of my own at this point, and doing really well. Even though I was on my 6-month probationary period. There was a big dearth in terms of managers at this point, and so they needed people as much as white needs rice, okay? One day, we got a call to the store from another GW store looking for a stock swap. The manager on the phone at the end of the convo said, "Oh," and I quote, "Oh, and Grunt, congrats. You're doing well over there, eh?" Thanks, dude, but what do you mean?" I asked. He seemed a little confused. He said, the head of retail asked Andy, my manager, to pass on a congrats to you for selling so many starter box sets. Has he not yet? No, I said. But then I didn't want to spread shit about my boss by accident. I added, but I'm sure he will soon. I bet he's just waiting for the right moment, or he's getting me a beer or something. Ha ha ha. Anyway, conversation ended, and we got on with our day. That meeting the manager was talking about had happened several weeks earlier. Nice. Andy clearly had no intention of passing on the head of retail's nice words. Jesus. Some people are really insecure in their own position. And that's why they don't want to spread anything like this. There were a few things like this that told me that despite Andy's smiling exterior and generally nice guy attitude, there was something else there under the surface. I was on my probation, as mentioned earlier, 6 months at the start of my role at Games Workshop. I didn't want to rock the boat, so just went with the flow though. A few weeks later, there was another meeting. Okay. This time near Nottingham, and so Andy informed me that we would be heading down there together as it was a work thing and stores with staff were invited to take somebody with them from their store. A staffer working with them. This was pretty sweet, as we all got to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. We headed down there for a day of usual boring, don't forget to breathe seminars, and eventually headed to the main stores at Lenton to have a little look around. Whilst there, we found a load of gear waiting for us that Andy had requested for his store. Not to buy, but to sell as stock in his store. We are talking about a trolley full of Games Workshop products, hand-selected by Andy and kept by Nottingham for him, as he did Dark Eldar, and he said he knew a big buyer at the store who had a big need for Dark Eldar, but Andy didn't have the supply to satisfy him. We wheeled it out and over to the van that was parked nearby. Whilst there, Andy told me to get us a few coffees after we'd loaded up a few things, and handed me a $5 and told me he'd get things loaded up from here. Fair enough, I did so. We came back... Sorry, need to have a little... Fair enough, I did so. I came back and found him in the van, ready to go. We drove back to our store, and that's when we saw it. A near empty van behind us, with only the stuff I had already packed still in the van. Oh no. You left it on the street, didn't you? You left it on the street. Oh, God. Andy did his nut. Yeah, I'm sure he did. Cursing himself for being so stupid and leaving the models on the side of the road in his haste to get back to the store. I felt genuinely sorry for the guy. Even in the days of the weight-based discount, this was a hefty loss. He told me not to worry and that he'd call head office and make things right. Fair enough. Okay, cool. There is a similar story that happened to me when I was working with GW. My manager had sent me, when I went to do an interview, to get some stuff from Lenton to bring back with me to Games Workshop. Literally, I went and bought it. So they didn't just give it to me. They didn't loan loss and give it to me. I went and bought it with my own money, and I was going to be reimbursed when I got back to the store, right? Which is not something your manager should ask you to do, by the way. That's not something you should ask your staff to do. If you don't have a certain product, get it from head office and sell it, right? Do not send your staff to Nottingham. Tell them to buy it with their own money, and you'll pay them back when you get back. Because that passes all of the onus and all of the risk onto the staff member, and that's unfair. That's not his role, right? Needless to say, I left a bag of stuff that I bought at a train station by accident, right? Okay. I called up my manager. Not only, right, did he get somebody else to go and pick it up from the train station to make sure it was there, but even then, he told me he'd pay me out anyway, even if it wasn't there. Alright? As much as I have a go at that guy, there were certain times where he knew he'd done fucked up, and he needed to make things right, and he would. Right? And that was one of those times. Yes, I screwed up by losing it, but I shouldn't have been put in that position in the first place. You know? So, yeah, he was good enough to say, listen, I'll reimburse you, no matter what. I'm going to phone this other guy, he's going to go down there and check if the bag's still there. And it was. So not only did we get our model sent to us, but I got my money back as well. So that's the main thing. Anyway, let's see how things worked out for you. I went home that night, and Andy told me headquarters would get back to us eventually about the loss. I was a bit confused at this, as Andy was the one who lost the stuff, not me. There is no us here, but hey. I got a phone call during my 2 days off from HQ telling me they were letting me go from my job during my probation period for losing, and I quote, an inordinate amount of valuable stock. Basically, negligence. I told them my piece and said that Andy had been the one loading the van and I had not been a part of that process. I even had the coffee receipt to prove it, just in case we were on camera loading the van. The guy from recruitment on the phone seemed a little taken aback by this, as obviously he had not been told everything by Andy. Needless to say though, the decision had been made. As someone who was involved, I was being punished by losing my job during my probationary period. I was fucking furious. I told him though that I understood the decision, but that the incident had nothing to do with me at all, but there was no hard feelings. I also understood there was my word against Andy's, and he had been a manager for some time now. In truth, I had already decided to take a break from Games Workshop and head back to do my master's degree, and figured you catch more flies with honey than salt, as you say. I stayed on the phone to make sure that the pathway would be open, and I asked him for me to return one day if I went and got my master's degree and came back and wanted to apply for another job, and I was told that yes, the door would of course be open for me. I took that with a grain of salt, but hey, you take what you can get. So yeah, Andy had called the head office and blamed me for everything. How do I know? When my master's degree was finished, I applied to be a manager of the very store I was fired from when I saw that the vacancy there was going. I got the interview and was told then and there, before we even sat down, by the recruitment manager that I was being hired because of my honesty, class, professionalism and work record the last time I had worked at Games Workshop. Wow. He told me that Andy had been fired just a few months later when more things from the store started going missing and he was getting rather arsey with customers. So, I took the job and stayed with the company until this day, moving around different stores and always seeming to do quite well. I have never told anybody about this, as I doubt recruitment wanted me to, but hey, the guys who were involved have long left the company by now, so I guess it's safe. It just shows though that life is weird, and even if it seems like the higher ups have no idea about things sometimes, they may be just waiting for a chance to put things right. Have a good one, North. Grunt. I'm going to tell you now, Grunt mate, I'm going to tell you right now, that guy stole those Dark Eldar models. You didn't provide me with enough context or detail here for me to say that with certainty, but I'm definitely thinking he stole those models. If other stuff started going missing from the store as well, definitely. Absolutely, definitely. Yeah, most definitely. I think he stole that stuff. I don't think it was left there. Especially if they didn't retrieve it either. You know what I mean? Like, especially if GW went to retrieve it and it wasn't there. Let's be honest now. Let's be honest. Unless you're in a really run-down area, if there is a bag there with some Warhammer models in it, 90% of people either aren't going to know what it is and so will leave it there, or they will know what it is, consider it worthless and not bother stealing it, even if they were interested in doing so in the first place. Right? Most of the time, you're not going to lose your stuff if it's just there. If it's there for like an hour or two. You know, I mean, especially if it's in Lenton. My God. If it's in Lenton, no, mate. Like, it's not going to... I know the coffee place you went to as well. I think I know. There is a little cafe around there for the workers in the local gasworks and things. Anyway. Love you all a long time anyway. I will speak to you tomorrow for some... there will be a 40k rant tomorrow, and it will be on... Are Warhammer fans ungrateful? I know. Controversial stuff. But I think sometimes it's good to self-reflect. And maybe look back at ourselves and our behaviour and say, hey, are we doing our best? Because a few of us certainly aren't. So I'll see you for that controversial video tomorrow. Thank you very much for sending in your hobby nightmares. Please make sure you keep doing so. at hobbynightmares@gmail.com. My Patreon is also down below if any of you want to help out with that and get me a beer over Christmas. And also, please aid me in getting towards my 16,000 subscriber target by the end of the year. That was a bonus target, but we are almost there. So if you can help me out with that, that'll be amazing. Alright? Okay, cool. Love you all a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.